Actually, that's spot on.
It is spot on.
Everything is spot on.
Actually, that's spot on.
It is spot on.
What's going on, everybody? It is Tony Monk, your host of Monk Spot Podcast here on KEI TV, your TV, when you need it, home of the Tony Key Show as well, returning to you tomorrow. Tony Key and Jill Alexander come back from their long-awaited break. You see my handsome face, too. Shout out to Fernando, my guy Bando Nando on the ones and twos right now. Pretty good show for you guys. Really good first thing to start out with regarding our favorite, as Goodell would call it, predatory quarterback, Deshaun Watson. As you guys know, he was served or handed down a 6-game suspension from the NFL disciplinary officer Sue L. Robinson earlier this month. It's been suspended for 6 games due to the sexual actions, sexual allegations, those things that have been haunting Deshaun Watson for what has been a good point or most of the year to this point. But Goodell says otherwise after said arbitrator says, you know what, we're just going to get this guy out of here for 6 games. Comes down, and mind you, this is who the NFL has asked to step in, right? A new way for them to bridge the gap of how things are handled or misdemeanors or whatever between the NFL and the NFLPA. All of that, Fern, just so Goodell can come back and say, nah, I don't like that suspension. I need to get this guy off the field for an entire year. Mind you, he's already been gone for the year when he was with the Houston Texans because he was trying to get traded, in which I told you guys last week, if you watched our show, that the NFL would not touch Deshaun Watson's case because they knew he wasn't going to play the previous year anyway, and that they weren't going to deal with this guy until he decided to come back and play football. Now what's happening? Well, he's decided to come back and play football. Not only that, the Browns are giving Watson the start in the first preseason game against the Jaguars. And you bet your bottom dollar that Goodell today is Wednesday, 4:44 p.m. CST, that he will do everything in his power to keep number 4 from touching the field this weekend. Expect that to happen. Now, and I'll read a little excerpt for you guys. Obviously, last week the NFL appealed Watson's 6-game suspension, which was handed down by Sue L. Robinson earlier this month. A league meeting called to formally approve the Denver Broncos' new ownership group Tuesday. Goodell was asked by the NFL why the NFL appealed Robinson's decision and was seeking a suspension or at least a year for the Cleveland Browns quarterback. He responded by saying, "We've seen enough evidence." She was very clear about the evidence. She reinforced the evidence. Goodell said there were multiple violations that were egregious, and it was predatory behavior. Bando, you know how bad it is if you get called a predator, bro. Like let's be like, yeah, you got, I mean, listen. No one will be happy with the ruling, regardless of what the ruling is. And mind you, a lot of this is because, for one, the whole reason Deshaun even got 6 games in the first place was because the arbitrator looked at past rulings under the same act, which you guys should know originated from Ray Rice's incident where he punched the lights out of his girlfriend, his wife, or whatever she was at the time, I can't really remember. And then the NFL had originally gave Rice 2 games. Came back and said, no, well, social media is erupted, fans have erupted, women have erupted. We got to get this guy more than 2 games. Well, instead of 2 games, we're gonna make it where Ray Rice never returns to the NFL again. And so he did it. Now, again, we can go back to all other offenses that weren't sexual acts. Ray Lewis, Big Ben, what was it, Adrian Peterson when he got suspended for whooping his son. Those different things. Which I don't feel like he should have got suspended for that. I mean, you hear me, man, in the boss. You hear me in the back, boss man. You hear me? Because you remember we talked about that. You remember we talked about that here, me and Bruce. We talked about Adrian Peterson whipping his son and why he probably should not have gotten suspended. But when you catch everything on videotape and you send it back to the league, they got to do something. So in this case, for Deshaun Watson, what gets me is, as I stated at the early part of the show, that they seen the evidence. It was clear about the evidence, and the evidence was reinforced. But Goodell still feels like the multiple violations weren't acted upon, as if Sewell Robinson only got Deshaun for one infraction, when Goodell feels there are multiple infractions that should have been listed upon. Well, he's right, but when you only bring 4 cases to an arbitrary judge and that's all she has to go off of, and then your past actions haven't been anything past 6 games outside of Ray Rice's incident, I said it last week, the NFL shot themselves in the foot. Now, of course, the NFLPA is going to try to sue. For those of you guys who don't know, it's the Players Association. They're going to attempt to sue. But it could be to no avail, because the reasons being that Goodell's answer is always the final say. If Goodell wants this guy out for 1 full year, he's going to get Deshaun Watson out for 1 full year. That's going to happen, and I guarantee you we will hear something no sooner than tomorrow or Friday, before the Cleveland Browns play a game on Saturday. That's going to happen. And for those of you guys who need more of an excerpt, you can go back. I said it last week as well. Look at Ezekiel Elliott's case. Look at Ezekiel Elliott's case. Same rules will apply there. Zeke was originally going to get only a couple games. Then that went to 4. Went to 6. Zeke fought it off as much as he could. Was pardoned. For those of you who don't remember the Take K to Race song, it used to be the theme song of my production team back at Exposure. Bump a beat, I was trying to beat a case, but I ain't beat that case. I did the race. And Zeke did the race. Now, I was very proud of him for going as long as he could. And then, of course, the suspension came at such a bad time that it forced the Cowboys to lose games that I felt like they shouldn't have lost. But that's neither here nor there. We're focused on Deshaun Watson and his case with the NFL. Listen, and I won't hit on this story too many times throughout the season, guys, until his suspension is actually made a thing. Deshaun should be gone for a year. My personal opinion. Now, I'm not going to say he assaulted anyone, because that's not the case. It's a sexual harassment type of case, but there's no assault. Did he have egregious behavior? Well, in the act of how he was doing it, yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of people will just disagree because of the past actions by the NFL, where someone was only suspended for less than 6 games for the same heinous acts that Deshaun committed. No one will necessarily love it, but it's going to happen. He's going to be gone for a year, and he should be gone for a year. Again, that's my personal opinion, because you don't do these type of things with women. And now, regardless of who was settled with, who was paid off, whatever happened under the table, all of these things, but when it hits the fan and the league has to become the shield once again, they have to try to defend themselves from people looking at them the wrong way. Obviously, in years past, the NFL has never handled anything correctly. That's been a fact. The NFL has never handled anything correctly. So here we are, once again staring another actionable offense in the face, wondering what the NFL is going to do. This isn't going to be pretty no matter how you spin it. Now, I don't particularly like the way in which Goodell is going with this, for reasons that I've already stated earlier, due to past offenses. But those offenses are no longer here nor there. If the NFL is going to start, you start now. And now people always say, Bando, was never doing it then. Well, you got to do right at some point. So when are you going to get it together? That starts today. Ain't that right, Mr. Key? You got to start somewhere getting it right. When we return here on KEITV on Monk's Pop Podcast, Serena Williams It is time for our favorite best girl tennis player to call it quits, or at least that's the impending information that we're all getting right now. And that is the plan to happen after the U.S. Open. Tony Monk, Monk Spot Podcast, will return in a bit.
Actually, that's spot on. Spot on.
Everything is spot on.
Actually, that's spot on.
Spot on.
Actually, that's spot on. Spot on.
Everything is spot on.
Actually, that's spot on.
Spot on. Coming back here on the Monk Spot Podcast, a part of KEI TV, your TV when you need it. Serena Williams calling it a career after the U.S. Open is over. She will retire. Man, and what a career it has been for this amazing woman. Obviously setting a precedent for years to come for so many girls, so many athletes that's already out there right now. Obviously, it's a whole lot of black girl magic, and we love to see it. Definitely a class athlete, top 5 in any sport, whether you want to call it Tom Brady, Michael Phelps, LeBron James, you name them. I guarantee that Serena Williams is a part of the conversations. I hear you, Vector Voss, man. You know it, because I know that's your girl, man. I know that's your girl, and you definitely spoke very highly of her during the facets of her career. My reactions. Well, it's obviously always hard to see, an athlete that, you grew up watching. And I won't speak as if I've just watched a bevy of tennis in my lifetime. But there were days, when I was younger, before moms really got cable, right, where you just had no choice but to watch some of the tennis matches that came on TV. And I caught a couple of U.S. Opens in my time, some Wimbledons in my time to see Serena Williams, as well as her sister Venus Williams in action. And for Serena, the biggest thing for me, or what got harder, was watching her begin to lose. And these are times probably even before her first child, which she had. And, seeing that, she got to the semifinals and she wasn't able to win, or she got to the first round and she wasn't able to win. And you began to see the decline of your favorite athletes, much like I've watched in football from time and time again, and their play just starts to decrease. They're not the same force that they were when they stepped on the tennis court, on the basketball court, on the football field, except LeBron James. He's just different. You're still able to average 30 points. But even then, you can tell that facets of LeBron game is different. Fern, and for your case, and that Vando hates when I call him to talk, but it's easier for me to talk back with someone sometimes. And I'm not going to pigeonhole you, Vando, but your favorite soccer player maybe, right? And seeing them and their play possibly decline and they're be on their way out the door, and you wonder, man, I remember when this guy could just sprint down the field and no one could touch him, and he could kick a soccer ball from 60 yards deep or something like that. And now, as you grow older, your favorite player becomes subpar, becomes just another name in the mix of a bunch of other names that's just trying to vie for some type of championship, when before they would even step on the court, you knew Serena Williams might get it this year. Serena Williams might win it this year. Serena Williams might take home the championship trophy. And so I'm going to pull from an excerpt. Vogue.com, they did an amazing spread, and Vogue did an amazing spread on Serena Williams, the September issue for 2022 that features her. And basically the Vogue article is basically Serena's own words, retiring on her own terms, and much else. And so I'm going to read this little paragraph here. I started playing tennis with the goal of winning the U.S. Open. I didn't think past that. And then I just kept winning. I remember when I passed Martina Hingis' Grand Slam count, then Celeste, and then I tied Billie Jean King, who is such an inspiration for me because of how she has pioneered gender equality in sports. Then it was climbing over the Chris Everett, Martina Navratilova mountain. There are people who say I'm not the GOAT because I didn't pass Margaret Court's record of 24 Grand Slam titles, which she achieved before the Open era that began in 1968. I'd be lying if I said I didn't want that record. Obviously, I do, but day to day, I'm not really thinking about her. If I'm in a Grand Slam final, then yes, I'm thinking about that record. Maybe I thought about it too much, and that didn't help. The way I see it, I should have had 30-plus Grand Slams. I had my chances after coming back from giving birth. I went from a C-section to a second pulmonary embolism to a Grand Slam final. I played while breastfeeding. I played through postpartum depression, but I didn't get there. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. I didn't show up the way I should have or could have, but I showed up 23 times, and that's fine. Actually, it's extraordinary. But these days, if I have to choose between building my tennis resume and building my family, I choose the latter. And that is class, everyone. That's an athlete in Serena Williams standard that has achieved excellence, that has achieved what she feels is fine in her lifetime. 23 Grand Slams. Playing and winning with being 3 weeks pregnant. She won the Australian Open doing that. The pressures of being a mom began to set in. Speaking on postpartum depression, I'm not a woman, so I can never put my shoes in Serena Williams to ultimately feel what she feels, but that's very intense, Mr. Key. Hearing the athlete say, I have to choose my family eventually, right? Then continue playing this game, to continue to put my body through the stress and through the anxiety of trying to be a champion year in and year out. But I've dominated during my time to where I can say everything that I have achieved to this point is okay. It's okay. And Serena goes on to speak early in her career that she never thought of having kids. There were times when she wondered if she'd ever bring kids into the world with all these problems, and she was never confident or comfortable with babies or children. And, you know, she knows that people have to be taken care of 24/7. How do you spend time to be this world-class athlete, but then come home to be a mom? In the world of sports, that doesn't necessarily exist. You hear it all the time when people retire. If you got a chance to hear a mic'd up or voices from past games, I remember, and I can't put my finger on. I know the Rams, they just won a Super Bowl. I want to say Andrew Whitworth, when he retired, told his kids, say, "Hey, Daddy's done. Daddy's coming home. Daddy's coming home to be with you guys, so I can take you guys to school, so I can be there for all the things that I would normally miss during a 17-game season." Athletes that only get 1 to 2 months of a break. Things like tennis, soccer, gymnastics. These things are usually year-round events that calls for practices on top of practices and your time away from a family. And it's just so awesome to see Serena weigh that and then say to herself, you know what? I'm just going to call it quits now. I've done what I could do up to this point in my career, up to my lifetime. And I'm going to go ahead and retire. And for her, she still wants to be a mom. And for her, I know she loves tennis. And she explains that you guys need to make sure you guys go and read this article on Vogue.com. In her own words, Serena Williams' retirement is definitely an awesome story that they was able to push out, that she pushed out. But Serena is, and of course, she's still gonna do awesome things. She's raised $11 million outside of finance from banks, private individuals, family offices. 78% of her portfolio happens to be companies started by women, people of color. So she's still doing a lot of different things for the women, not only in her field, but just period. And it's so awesome to see that. And I wish nothing but the best for Serena Williams. It was definitely awesome being able to see her play throughout her career, see her be such a dominant force. Lastly, and I remember it kind of being the same for her sister Venus Williams. Venus was a force and she was a bit before our time, kind of much when I was much younger. But seeing her kind of slide towards retirement, seeing her lose in the early rounds of Wimbledon, U.S. Opens, and knowing that, wow, I remember at one point Serena and Venus were the top tier cream of the crop, creme de la creme. And now that's just so much different. But, fare thee well to a woman at, 23 Grand Slams again, a career that will, hardly ever be replicated again. Obviously, someone will probably come along and, as great to do and begin to pass these things. But obviously, we will know where Serena Williams sits on her own Mount Rushmore of tennis. When we return, we get into some more NFL talk. NFL Power Rankings. The NFL has released their list. We will go through that, see if they at least got the first 10 teams right. And then there's a running backs power ranking list. And then I will get into why no one loves Ezekiel Elliott anymore. And for those of you who have watched me on Spot on Sports, whether it's been here on the Monk Spot podcast, the Cowboys can do all things through Ezekiel Elliott. That strengthens them. Look at you, friend. Look at you. He got it. Hey, KEI TV, your TV when you need it. Monk Spot Podcast will return in a moment.
Actually, that's spot on. Spot on.
Everything is spot on.
Actually, that's spot on.
Spot on.
Actually, that's spot on. Spot on.
Everything is spot on.
Actually, that's spot on. Spot on.
Coming back to you on KEI TV, Tony Monk Spot Podcast, NFL Power Rankings. Dan Hanses wrote this article on the NFL.com, and I'm going to go through this list. And again, we're just kind of see if they got the first 10 teams right. Where do the Cowboys rank on this list? Are they too high, too low, or is it just right? Coming in at number 1. No. I'm going to do this differently. Coming in at number 10. Yeah, I got to start from number 10, boss man, because I got to build up to 1 just so we can see where the Cowboys just may have or may not have missed out at. Number 10, the Baltimore Ravens. If you close your eyes, you can picture the reaction behind the scenes at Ravens headquarters as after first-round pick Tyler Linderbaum went down to a foot injury, a collective perfectly synchronized hand-to-forehead slap by each member of the coaching staff. You get it, too. The 21 Ravens had their season essentially wiped out by an injury bug attack that reached biblical levels. The good news is that Linderbaum's injury is treated as a sprain rather than a rupture, leaving open a real possibility that the promising young center is on the field week 1. Cut the birds a break, football gods. All right. For now, I like him at 10. I'm not going to even get into this whole facet that, Lamar doesn't have a first-round receiver. He doesn't have receivers above 6 feet. Lamar has what he has. He was still an NFL MVP. I don't want to hear excuses. The Ravens still can win games. They have a really good defense. Let's move on. Number 9, the LA Chargers. Looking for a sleeper pick at tight end in your upcoming fantasy draft, you could do worse than Donald Parham, the 6'8" giant currently flashing tantalizing red zone chemistry with Justin Herbert at Chargers training camp. Parham missed the end of last season with a sustaining scary concussion on Thursday Night Football against the Chiefs. I like it. Everyone loves to put the Chargers above where they actually end up playing. But this has always been the Chargers since the days of Phillip Rivers and LaDainian Tomlinson. Wherever we want to put them, you could put them at 3, they're going to play like 13. You put them at 13, they're going to play like 23. You put them at 23, they'll play like 32 if you allow them. But I love the Chargers on paper. Do I love them at 9? We'll see as we kind of go along with the rest of this list. The Denver Broncos at 8. I already hate it. The Broncos suffered a terrible break last week with the news of wide receiver Tim Patrick. He tore his ACL after coming down awkwardly on his leg in practice. Patrick's skill set as an outside playmaker was a perfect fit for a new quarterback, Russell Wilson. The pressure now intensifies on 2020 pick Jerry Jeudy and second-round pick KJ Hamler, who stands to gain the biggest uptick in playing time with Patrick on the shelf until 23. The injury and subsequent perusal of Denver's depth chart serves as a reminder that Wilson's new wideouts are talented but largely unproven. Now, of course, the Broncos would pivot into the top 10, namely because Russell Wilson is there. How good this team is actually going to be depends on how good the rest of the division is. The Raiders, the Chargers, the Chiefs. If you ask me, they finished last in the division. Number 7, the Chiefs, of course, looking for a bounce-back candidate in Kansas City. How about defensive end Frank Clark, who dropped some serious weight in the offseason and looks much closer to the player who dominated the opposition in Kansas City's March Super Bowl in 2020. March to the Super Bowl in 2020. Clark acknowledged to reporters that summer that he played with a gut last season, extra pounds that affected his speed and agility, adding in some troubling off-the-field issues from last season. Clark profiled as a cut candidate ahead of the new league year. Instead, the Chiefs stuck with the high-priced defender, restructuring his contract in March. He could reap the benefits. Both could reap the benefits. Frank Clark playing with the eye of the Tiger would be a massive lift for Steve Spagnuolo's defense. That ain't even a question. The biggest question is, how does Pat Mahomes play without Tyreek Hill? When you can't dump the ball out, when you can't do the surprise behind the back stuff, that weird baseball throw, shoulder throw that he does when he spins out the pockets. Is all of this still going to be a thing when it's only Juju Smith-Schuster and Mecole Hardman? We'll see. Number 6. The Green Bay Packers. Shout out to that regular season warrior, Aaron Rodgers, the 4-time MVP who plays the quarterback position like he mastered the sport. Even still, the Pack are asking the world for their quarterback from another season with Super Bowl or bust expectations gets rolling in Green Bay. Devontae Adams is gone. David Bakhtiari remains sidelined with another procedure on his troublesome left knee. Adding right tackle Elgton Jenkins appears likely to start on the PUP list to start the season. As he continues to work back from knee surgery of his own, you can easily see a scenario where the Green Bay Packers attack sputters out the gate. The pressure on Rodgers to make it all work will be immense. But when is it never immense? Because every single year, Aaron Rodgers complained that he doesn't have anything. When he does. Not like Allen Lazard. I know they got the other guy, Dobbs, out of the draft. We'll see how good he is for Aaron Rodgers, and I think Sammy Watkins is there. Like, oh my God, is this the receiver that you're relying on, the hamstring king? But Matt LaFleur and that running game will be just fine. I love Aaron Jones. I think he's going to be good again. Aaron Rodgers is going to wheel the Packers to the playoffs. There'll be a top 3 seed because when they never not a top 3 seed, the question for them isn't the season. The question for them is what happens when they get to the playoffs. So far, before I hit 5, I'm okay with this list. Coming into number 5, the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are smart to give Joe Burrow plenty of recovery time following his appendectomy. The continued absence of La'el Collins is a different matter. The veteran right tackle, one of 3 new starting offensive linemen in Cincinnati, remains out on the timetable as he deals with a back injury. Collins felt like a steal in free agency, but a lengthy absence could torpedo the team's efforts to better protect their young star quarterback, who is under siege for each of his first 2 seasons as a pro. I believe Joe Burrow was sacked over 50 times last season, sacked 9 times in the AFC Championship. Hell yeah, he needs his linemen. Now, obviously, I like the Bengals at 5. I probably put them at 3. Given to how and that's just saying that we haven't went over the top 4 teams of this list yet. Bengals are going to be a well-rounded team. Questions are going to be on the line, but I expect Joe Burrow, as well as my guy Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, to come out the gates firing. They got a well-rounded group of receivers with Taj Boyd and my other guy over there. I think they're going to be just fine. Number 4. Now I super hate this list. It's totally wrong. The San Francisco 49ers. It's full speed ahead for Trey Lance. Era in San Francisco. There's likely to be some turbulence for the young passer with limited experience, but Lance has been set up for success after a rookie season spent mostly on the sidelines. The Deebo Samuel drama is put to bed with the big contract extension, while Brandon Ayuk appears primed to make the leap as the number 2 receiver. Throw in a do-everything Pro Bowler at tight end with George Kittle, a versatile backfield led by Elijah Mitchell, and arguably the league's best play caller. And as Bruce was said, now he's not here to defend it, Kyle Shanahan. Now, I love Kyle Shanahan. Do I feel like the San Francisco 49ers should be at 4? No. But the NFL loves to boost teams after they had relatively good seasons, not named the Cowboys. Yes, I'm dry hating when I say that, Fern. So it's okay. But I don't feel like 4 is a justifiable position for this team, given that we don't know what we're getting out of Trey Lance, but everyone wants to make up a bevy of reasons to love Trey Lance. Number 3, Teflon Tom turns 45 years old. 45 at quarterback. If that's not the most incredible thing to a career, I'm not sure what is. Bucs quarterback coach Clyde Christensen recently offered the scouting report to GM Jason Licht. You're not going to believe this. Brady's arm is better than I've ever seen it. What's crazy, the fact Brady could be slinging it at the highest level of his life in the 23rd season, or the idea there is no good reason for us to even doubt it. We have questions about Tampa Bay's offensive line. If you guys don't know, their center, their first-string center is out for the year. Their second-string center went down earlier today, I believe. But the reports that came back that he will be okay. But it's the GOAT. And honestly, if you ask me, guess who's going to win the Super Bowl? Tom Brady, until I see otherwise. And I'll continue to say that until I see otherwise. Number 2, the Los Angeles Rams, of course, those who won the Super Bowl. Sean McVay said he sleep better after he watched Matthew Stafford throw without limitations on Saturday. It's a positive sign that the quarterback's unusual elbow issue can be effectively managed ahead of Week 1 and beyond. The defending champions seem to have less uncertainty around Allen Robinson, who has opened eyes during training camp. On a recent edition of NFL Around the podcast, beat reporter Jordan Rodriguez said she lost count of how many people connected to the Rams had come to her to rave about the wide receiver, him and George Kittle. I mean, not George Kittle, excuse me. Brain fart, the white boy on the other side of the ball. I mean, I love him though. He's a really good receiver. Cooper Kupp. I didn't mean to be like racist when I say that. That wasn't the idea at all. Cooper Kupp, he and Allen Robinson, I'm sure will be a force. Obviously, what don't the Rams kind of do well from a team standpoint? If anybody's going to beat them, it's going to be their own quarterback, Matthew Stafford. I still say that no matter what year he's in, and despite him winning the Super Bowl, it was more or less the team around him and not him himself. But he did good, though. It's okay. The Buffalo Bills, who everyone agrees is the most well-rounded team in the NFL, comes in at number 1. The idea out of the 2022 NFL draft was that first-round pick Kyer Elam will line up opposite Tre'Davious White on opening night against the Rams. That might hopefully still prove to be true, but now the rookie is learning on the job, and the veteran is still rehabbing on torn ACL he suffered in November. The Athletic reported over the weekend that Elam had been picked on in camp, opening door for yet another rookie 6th-rounder, Christian Benford, to earn reps with the team starters. Meanwhile, there remains to be no set timetable for White's return, with uncertainty at both corner spots. All-pro safety Jordan Poyer on the shelf with a hyperextended elbow. The secondary stands out as a concern in otherwise serene landscape in western New York. Well, it's still early in training camp. Relatively, no games have been played as of yet for the Bills. Obviously, I believe number 1 is fairly right for them. It could be very well argued, especially with the addition of Bobby Wagner to the Rams as their starting linebacker now, that they could be the number 1 team, in which they probably are. But again, I think the list is okay. Where do the Cowboys come in on this list? Well, the Cowboys come in at number. We need a drum roll for this. I need to get a drum roll back in here. There we go. Thank you, Fern. Cowboys coming at number 14. Jerry Jones says the Cowboys are in no rush to explore the veteran wide receiver market. Is Jera sure about that? Last week, an already thin group of pass catchers took another hit as free agent addition James Washington suffered a foot injury that will keep him sidelined well into the season. Michael Gallup is still on rest from his torn ACL last year. And Amari Cooper is now in Cleveland. The current Dallas wideout room features CeeDee Lamb and a collection of question marks. Where would Dak Prescott go when Lamb is inevitably blanketed by double coverage? Dalton Schultz hive buzzes with excitement and anticipation. But that matters not. For the Cowboys can do all things through Ezekiel Elliott that strengthens them. I don't know why they even left them off this excerpt that they wrote here. 14, when you put the Saints ahead of them, the Colts ahead of them, the Raiders ahead of them, I don't like it. I don't. I'm being honest. I think the Cowboys are better than every single team they've had ranked in front of them before the top 10 list hits. They're better than the Raiders. They're better than the Colts. And they've already beaten the Saints and shown that. Now, the biggest thing is on paper and when healthy, that changes. But I still think when you have a defense with Michael Parsons, they just added linebacker Anthony Barr, albeit he's missed 20 games in the last 2 seasons with limited reps, obviously, and not being the main starter behind LVE. I think the Cowboys will shake out just fine. I had a chance to, speak with Neville Gallimore and DeMarcus Lawrence at the Camp Exposure event. Shout out to my boys Lovick Hatch and my guys. Okay, the list is fine, and I can't spend too much time complaining about it because my TD said I need to go out and go on break. So, when we return, there's actually a running backs list that we're going to get into. And why everyone hates Ezekiel Elliott. And it's not going to be a Zeke show, y'all, I promise. But I just have to give my piece about that at the end so I can lay a lot of things to rest. KEI TV, your TV when you need it. Tony Monk, One Spot Podcast. We'll return in a moment.
Actually, that's spot on. Spot on.
Everything is spot on.
Actually, that's spot on.
Spot on.
Actually, that's spot on.
Spot on.
Everything is spot on.
Actually, that's spot on.
Spot on.
Actually, that's spot on.
Spot on.
Everything is spot on.
Actually, that's spot on.
Spot on.
Tony Monk returning here on KEI TV, your TV when you need it. Again, make sure you tune in tomorrow at 7 p.m. to the Tony Key Show. Coming off that long-awaited break, Tony and Jill return to the mic to do their thing. Not this Tony, but that guy over there, that amazing guy in the background, Tony Key, will be returning to your screens. Shout out Fernando on the ones and twos right now, engineering on the board. Our last segment coming up, we got the NFL running backs ranking. Another list on NFL.com by Maurice Jones-Drew, former running back. So, it takes a professional running back to know a running back, but we'll see if he actually got it right. So I'm going to start from number 10, much like the last list. Christian McCaffrey. CMC sits all the way down at 10 because we don't know what we're going to get. He's incredibly talented. Remember, he had the 1,000 rushing, 1,000 receiving in 19, but he missed 23 games over the last 2 seasons. McCaffrey is so important to the Panthers' success. If he's healthy for an entire season, he's a top 3 running back without question. He just has to be available, and they're right. Now, is he 10 at this point? Giving the running backs that I'm looking at on the list below him, it's not hard to rank him that low. Now, he finished the season with only 99 attempts and 442 rushing yards. 37 receiving yards, 343. Now, we want to put CMC and keep him relevant when and you're going to see how this ties in when I get further up in this list, that the more you utilize a running back, the worse it gets for them. Tread. When you hand it to a running back 20 so times a game and you throw it to him 8 so times a game, that's 30 touches. Now, multiply that, Fern, times 16. And now you get a guy that has over 200 to 300 touches in a season for a running back. I said before that when asking running backs to do so many different things, it actually increases yet decreases the value on them. Shelf life already isn't high. You're talking about somewhere within 4 years before running backs have to start contemplating retirement because they've already got battered and bruised. But I'm going to continue with this list. Number 9, Najee Harris. With the player not named Ben Roethlisberger under center on a permanent basis for the first time since 2003, the Steelers' offense is primed to go through number 22. He had an outstanding rookie campaign and 0 fumbles on 381 regular season touches. He's durable and poised to lead the unit in the run game while also providing a big boost in the pass game. He's durable. He's durable. After one season, we're saying he's durable. But how long will that last? Number 8. Austin Eckler. Eckler totaled 20 scrimmage touchdowns last season, and he still somehow seems like a sleeper in an offense that's built to throw the ball with Justin Herbert and high-end receivers. He's proven a dual-threat playmaker and a perfect fit for Joe Lombardi's offense. Lots to love about Austin Eckler. Finished the season with 206 carries for 911 rush yards, 70 receptions for 647. Obviously, well over 1,500 yards on the season. Joe Mixon comes in at number 7. Don't expect quarterback Joe Burrow to be the only player in Cincinnati to benefit from a revamped offensive line. Mixon in the Bengals run game that ranked 23rd in NFL. Be a bit surprised if the Bengals turn to Samaje Perine on their final drive in the Super Bowl. Perine had been involved in back-to-back failed plays, but they ended their hopes of winning the franchise first Lombardi Trophy. I'd expect Mixon to get a slightly bigger role in big games going forward. Overall, the veteran should have another stellar season, especially with the woes that the Bengals line has. I, too, expect Joe to be a big focal point in the offense. Alvin Kamara comes in at number 6, compiled 24.6% of NFL's of New Orleans, total scrimmage yards in 21, and the Saints surely expect him to be a big part of the offense from the jump again after his hearing stemming from the February arrest was postponed. The 5-time Pro Bowler is one of the most versatile playmakers in any backfield. Kamara should stay fresh well into the season, with Mark Ingram getting back into the mix for New Orleans last year. Number 5, the Cowboys. They do all things, and his nickname should be all things. Ezekiel Elliott. A lot of people are down on Elliott and high on Tony Pollard, and they're high off life for being high on Tony Pollard after the latter outgained Zeke by 1 yard per carry in 21. But to me, Zeke's still the guy in Dallas. Not me saying this. This is Maurice saying this. He was a bit banged up last season, PCL tear, but he still does everything the Cowboys need him to do, and he looks to be in good shape heading into 2022. I met Zeke's trainer. I believe it. When I look at the top backs on my list, there's a big difference between Elliott and Henry, but Zeke still gets into the top 5 thanks to his contributions in the aerial attack as a pass catcher and a blocker. I'll come back to Zeke later on. Number 4, Dalvin Cook, who finished the season with 1,159 rushing yards. Cook is one of the most explosive backs in the NFL since 19. He's averaged the second most scrimmage yards per game, 120 in the league. The Vikings are at their best offensively when Cook is carving up defenses, and I expect new head coach Kevin O'Connell to continue feeding the 3-time Pro Bowler early and often to play and open up play actions for my guy Kirk Dirk. Number 3, Nick Chubb. Chubb is going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting while Deshaun Watson is out. Cleveland's running back 1 has been exceptional through his first 4 seasons, averaging 5.3 yards per carry on 908 attempts. So there's been a lot of confidence around his ability to carry a team. Expect another monster season from the Auburn running back. They're going to need it with Deshaun Watson's suspension looming. Number 2, Jonathan Taylor. Taylor led the NFL in nearly every rushing category last season. Along with scrimmage yards and touchdowns, he's a major part of the Colts offense and should continue to be heavily relied upon in 2022. Even with former MVP Matt Ryan now under center, the question for Taylor is, can he produce another season like in 21? And can he carry his team to the playoffs like Derrick Henry does, which you already know where Henry ranks on this list. I love Jonathan Taylor. I think he's going to do awesome, especially with the weight being taken off of him, thanks to Matt Ryan now being there. Number one, Derrick Henry missed 9 games last season and still finished 9th in the league with 937 rushing yards at the time of a mid-season foot injury. He was on pace for 1,991 rushing yards for the season. He's in a league of his own. And after listening to his interview on NFL Network's Inside Training Camp, it's clear to me he has no intentions of slowing down in year 7. This guy is nuts. Derrick Henry is like 7 feet tall, and it's like he's a racehorse. He's a stallion, and I totally expect him to be at the top of the rushing chart again when this season ends. So, love the running backs list. Just to name a few that came down later on in the list, Aaron Jones comes in at number 12. David Montgomery in at 14. J.K. Dobbins, despite the injury, made this list at 15. Saquon, Mr. 2.9 yards a carry. He actually averaged a yard more, thankfully, for the first time in his life at 3.7. But people love him for some reason, so okay. He's at 18. Leonard Fournette, questions about him coming in overweight to training camp. He comes in at 19. And to round out this list, 25, Rashard Penny now being the starting running back for the Seahawks. 28 sees Josh Jacobs, surprisingly low on this list. Breece Hall at 30, being the running back for the New York Jets. Now, to end this show, I'm going to talk a little bit about Ezekiel Elliott because I feel like there has to be some things that need to be discussed for Cowboys fans coming into the season and understanding that we often count on players a lot, albeit in any sport. LeBron James, Luka Doncic, anything from a team-based standpoint, Lionel Messi, right? And, the more and more you count on these guys, the more and more, the shelf life on them is going to go down. For a guy like Ezekiel Elliott, we have complained, we have hammered that Tony Pollard should get the start. But what bothers me the most is that we have a running back that does so many different things when it comes to pass catching, pass blocking, being able to still run a football at what still seems to honestly be an elite level despite the PCL tear that he had last year. And we want this guy out the door. I have a hard time trying to figure out where the fairness comes in because, how can we say that about a guy that gave us so much in his first couple of seasons? Ezekiel Elliott is a 2-time NFL leading rusher. Could have been a 3rd time had he not got suspended for his 6 games. And now here we come in his 7th season in the NFL as if none of these things ever happened. We hammer for a guy in Tony Pollard that I know for a fact, in the words of Bruce Taylor, and he's not here to say this, that none of y'all watched the Memphis game before he got here. Y'all didn't see him with the Memphis Tigers. Y'all watched none of his games to know that Tony Pollard was not a starting running back. He played behind the Rams starting running back. He played behind the Redskins, the Commandeers now, starting running back. He was a pass catcher out the backfield who took no more than 12 rushing attempts a game. And you want him to come in and carry the load. What we don't know that we're asking for is that we're asking for the fall of Tony Pollard no sooner than we see him actually becoming the guy for the Cowboys. That's what happened with Zeke. When you start to call on a guy so much, the wear and tear begins to come bigger than it was before. I told people after that Buccaneers game, we should have gave Tony Pollard the ball. Ask Tony Pollard to do the same things Ezekiel Elliott did with Devin White, who runs a 4-5 as a linebacker, crashed through that hole, and ask me if Tony Pollard is going to pass block for Dak Prescott the way Ezekiel Elliott did as the starter. Your starter should be able to do everything. He got to be able to pass block. He has to run block. He has to catch. He has to run with efficiency. All of these things with efficiency. I guarantee you. I stand by it, as Denzel Washington would say, that Tony Pollard cannot do all of those things. If you want to give him more carries, sure. But you can't expect him to carry it low like Ezekiel Elliott can. That's why it's so hard for other running backs to touch the field, because Zeke does everything. Now, is he on the decline? Of course. He's carried the ball more than 1,000 times in his career. That's going to happen for any running back. Every running back is going to meet the same fate that Ezekiel Elliott and running backs prior to him have met in these seasons. But Cowboy fans around the league with other NFL, I want to go back to that list, Fern, that I talked about with Christian McCaffrey. 1,000 rushing yards and 1,000 passing yards. Now he's missed over 20 games in 2 years. Why? Because the Panthers count on him too much. There's no other guy to give the ball to other than Christian McCaffrey. At least the Cowboys have had other guys other than Ezekiel Elliott, but you see what happens when you have to rely on a guy so much. Mind you, while we waited for Dak Prescott to become the quarterback that he is today, this team ran through Ezekiel Elliott. And the only thing that we got to show for it is to say that we don't want him to be the guy anymore. Come on, people. This is the Monk Spot Podcast on KEI TV, your TV. Thank you guys for tuning in. I think it's been a really good show. Shout out Bando Nando on the ones and twos. Before we go out, anything cool happening this weekend, Fern? Anything, bro? Just anything. Just throw it at me, bro. Just anything in the city. Anything just, sports, esports. It doesn't matter. Anything we need to be paying attention to? Probably not. I guess there's nothing. Yeah, man, the turn of the show, man. I guess that's it. I guess that's our show for the most part. You can catch me again. I think I'll be back at you guys next week, depending on how Fern feels. If he deems me worthy enough to come back in front of this mic to you guys. But I'm glad to be getting back into the swing of things. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Again, this is the Monk Spot Podcast. Be sure to follow me, right? Follow my page. Follow Spot On Sports, the new wave of sports that is sweeping the nation. Where we're not just accurate, but we are spot on. Be sure to tune in to KEI TV tomorrow. Tony Key and Jill Alexander return from their long-awaited break. Excited to see that show come back. I think that's been it, and I'm out. Peace out.
Actually, that's spot on.
Spot on.
Everything is spot on.
Actually, that's spot on.
Spot on.